US President-elect Donald Trump has called for strengthening and expanding America's nuclear capability. It may be a coincidence, but Russian President Vladimir Putin also stressed the need to boost his country's nuclear defense readiness as well.
In a tweet posted on Thursday local time, Donald Trump said, quote, "The United States must greatly strengthen and expand its nuclear capability until such time as the world comes to its senses regarding nukes." He didn't offer any further explanation. The Associated Press reported it may be related with a meeting with senior military officials the previous day. But what's raising eyebrows is that Trump's tweet came just hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin called for enhancing his country's nuclear program. Putin said Moscow needs to, quote, "enhance the combat capability of strategic nuclear forces, primarily by strengthening missile complexes that'll be guaranteed to penetrate existing and future missile defense systems." What's more, he said the planned military buildup by the US-led Western military alliance near Russia's borders could change the balance of power in the region. He stressed that Russia needs to quickly adapt plans for neutralizing threats to the country. Given the consecutive timing of the nuclear remarks, some watchers say the future of US-Russia relations is looking unclear, and even the prospect of a nuclear arms race seems to be on the horizon.
We reviewed a number of other factors, not just the military aspects. We look at our geography, at the history, at the internal state of Russian society, and with this in mind, we can say that we are much stronger than any potential aggressor. But at the same time, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that if we allow ourselves to relax just for 1 minute, to allow for just one failure or pause in the modernization of the army and fleet, the situation might change quickly, because we live in a high-paced world. We won't be able to detect that change, so a lot depends on you. You need to continue this hard work that was started a couple of years ago.
President-elect Donald Trump says the US must greatly strengthen and expand its nuclear capability. But how many nuclear warheads does America already have? Probably about 7,000. That's according to the Federation of American Scientists, which tracks the number of nuclear weapons around the world. But the exact number in each country's stockpile is a secret. The only country with more warheads than the US is Russia, with an estimated 7,300. The other countries with nuclear weapons include Pakistan, China, India, Israel, France, and the United Kingdom. Those 6 countries have a combined nuclear stockpile of about 1,100. No one really knows how Trump plans to strengthen the country's nuclear program, but the US hasn't produced a nuclear weapon since the end of the Cold War.
A list of the world's biggest military spenders has been released. In terms of actual money spent, there's no contest, with the United States accounting for more than a third of the world total. In terms of military spending in relation to GDP, though, North Korea is heads and shoulders above the rest.
North Korea's annual military expenditure ranks highest in the world relative to its gross domestic product. According to the U.S. State Department's World Military Expenditures and Arms Transfers Report for 2016, North Korea spent $3.8 billion a year on its military on average between 2004 and 2014. That accounts for around 23% of the North's GDP of $15 billion. A distant second on the list is Oman at 11.4%. Saudi Arabia is ranked third at 8.6%. Spending 2.6% of its GDP on the military, South Korea came in 47th. In absolute terms, the United States easily topped the list at over $700 billion a year in military expenditures. South Korea was 11th, and North Korea 46th. In 2014 alone, the U.S. spent $656 billion, dwarfing China's $157 billion. In the latest figures for the Koreas, in 2014, the South spent $39 billion, and the North slightly over $4 billion.
North Korea upped the level of threat in recent days. One example would be its large-scale artillery drill targeting South Korea's presidential office of Cheongwade. To better counter the North's continued threats, South Korea's Air Force implemented long-range precision-guided missiles. Dubbed Taurus, they're capable of targeting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's office from hundreds of kilometers away.
A South Korean fighter jet launches a missile. During flight, the missile switches target coordinates and strikes an enemy bunker. A 3-meter thick concrete wall surrounding the facility is no contender to the missile, and the bunker is instantly destroyed. This was a demonstration of the prowess of the German long-range air-to-surface missile, Taurus. And for the first time, 10 imported Taurus missiles has been implemented into South Korea's Air Force arsenal on Thursday, specifically to the fighter jet F-15K fleet.
During peacetime, the missile will restrain the enemy from provoking, but if war breaks out, we will be capable of targeting the enemy's core with precision and accuracy.
The Taurus missile can fly at an altitude of 40 meters, and as fast as the speed of sound, which makes it difficult to intercept. The missile has stealth capabilities that can evade enemy radars, and it is also equipped with a military-grade GPS device, making it hack-proof. South Korea is planning to import 250 more Taurus missiles from Germany by the end of 2018.
China continues to strongly protest South Korea's decision to deploy a U.S. missile defense system to the Korean peninsula. Seoul says it is necessary for protection against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, but Beijing disagrees and has vowed to take necessary actions.
China's foreign ministry spokesperson said Beijing is closely watching Trump's and Seoul's stances on the deployment. She said China has expressed its concern and clear opposition to it numerous times, claiming that won't help maintain peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and will harm the strategic and security interests of China and other countries in the region.
The United States, Russia, and China are in a technological race to achieve air superiority on the globe. It's a race costing all three countries billions upon billions of dollars in research and development. President-elect Donald Trump met with officials from companies developing fighter jets and has addressed the expense of the next-generation fighter. The competition between the countries mentioned has entered cyberspace. The attention in hacking surrounds accusations about Russian involvement in the U.S. election, although President Obama mentioned China in his last press conference.
The Chinese have in the past engaged in cyber attacks directed at our companies to steal trade secrets and proprietary technology. And I had to have the same conversation with with President Xi. And what we've seen is some evidence that they have reduced, but not completely eliminated, these activities.
Follow-up to that soundbite that the president gave us in his last press conference got very little attention by the mainstream media. The Chinese hacking of military secrets is very well documented, and some fear the stealth technology in China's new J-20 jet fighter may have come from hacking classified American military material. The J-20 will challenge the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 for air superiority.
Now to the latest on the war-torn Syria. The Syrian army has announced that Aleppo is now completely back under its control. In a statement, it also said the 4-year-long civil war has come to an end. The last rebel fighters were evacuated from the city on Thursday, handing President Bashar al-Assad his biggest victory of the war.
The victory marks the beginning of a new period in fighting terrorism and ending it in all Syrian territories. Syrian leadership of the army and armed forces ensures that this victory will be a motivation for continuing the fight against terrorism and returning safety and security to the entire nation.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad says his country's victory in Aleppo is an achievement it shares with Russia and Iran. The Russian Air Force conducted hundreds of raids on rebel-held parts of Aleppo. Iran-backed militia groups sent thousands of fighters against rebels on the city's front lines. Aleppo's residents took to the streets on Thursday night to celebrate the city's liberation. Thousands braved winter weather to go out and shout chants in support of President Bashar al-Assad. Jubilant drivers were also blowing their cars' horns. Many hope the city can be rebuilt as soon as possible so normal life can resume.
An explosion went off outside the headquarters of a Christian lobbying group in Sydney, Australia, Wednesday. A man driving a van with gas cylinders set off the explosion, injuring himself and blowing out the building's windows. Police say the attack was not politically motivated, but the Australian Christian lobby says they've received death threats for supporting traditional marriage. The head of the group, Lyle Shelton, is skeptical and said at a news conference, "You don't just drive around the corner here at 10 o'clock at night, park a van, load it with gas cylinders, then detonate it, unless you're trying to send a message to the ACL." Police said they were investigating the explosion and the threats against that group.
According to Australian police, a major plot to bomb parts of Melbourne Christmas Day have been foiled. The plot involved explosives and possibly knives or guns against possible targets in the heart of the city, including the area near Federation Square, Flinders Street Station, and St. Paul's Cathedral. In a series of overnight raids, 7 people were arrested in connection to the plot inspired by the terror group ISIS. However, 2 of those people were later released without charges. Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull called the successful raids one of the most substantial terrorist plots that have been disrupted over the last several years, and vowed that the nation would not submit to the threat of terrorism.
The US government has decided to dismantle an inactive registry program for visitors from countries that host extremist groups. The program was initiated just 1 year after the 9/11 terrorist attacks in 2001. The program was later expanded to require registration for visitors from 25 countries, most of which have predominantly Muslim populations, but it was then suspended beginning in 2011 after criticism about its inefficiency and redundancy. Now, although critics of the program have welcomed the news, it remains to be seen whether the incoming Trump administration will renew the program. Trump's White House counselor Kellyanne Conway said Thursday that the president-elect has considered a registry for visitors from select countries that have a certain history of terrorism.
And it's good to see you. I got to ask you, can you just dismantle?
Well, it's kind of interesting the timing of this, isn't it? He waits till a month before he's out of office, or less than that, to dismantle this. I think it's completely political. And obviously, he hasn't been using it for 5 years, so why now? It makes no sense at all other than to create an impediment for Donald Trump.
The Islamic State has urged its followers to attack U.S. churches and has published names and addresses of thousands of prospective targets, according to a report in the news website Vocative. Messages posted in Arabic to the group's social media site called for bloody celebrations in the Christian New Year. The post said the Islamic State hopes to tap lone wolf attackers to turn the Christian New Year into a bloody horror movie, Vocative reports. Another post urged followers to attack churches, hotels, crowded coffee shops, streets, markets, and public places, and provided some examples in the U.S., Canada, France, and the Netherlands. The information on U.S. churches was based on information already available online and includes a public directory of churches across all 50 states, Vocative said. Cities across the U.S. have bolstered security around holiday events following the Berlin Christmas market attack that killed 12 people.
Well, the attack in Berlin comes less than a month after a 12-year-old boy attempted to detonate a bomb at another Christmas market in western Germany. The boy of Iraqi origin was reportedly radicalized and directed by Islamic State. His case has added to fears that youngsters are now being recruited by terrorists to carry out attacks in Europe. Ilya Petrenko has more on the disturbing shift in tactics.
Caliphate Cubs, a squadron of underage Islamic State soldiers. That's Wikipedia putting them prominently on the list of ISIL units fighting in the battle for Mosul. Here's a father blessing his son before the kid vanishes in a fireball from a suicide blast. And this brainwashed 4-year-old just blew up a group of ISIL captives with a push of a button. Sickening, but no longer that shocking for Westerners, as long as it's happening somewhere in the deserts of Iraq or Syria. Well, this is Berlin.
The 12-year-old who is accused of planning a bomb attack in Ludwigshafen is currently in custody.
Last week, 10 teenagers were detained in Belgium over fears they were plotting terrorist attacks. Back to Germany, where earlier in Cologne, a Syrian migrant aged 16 was caught allegedly doing the same thing. The Bavaria train axe horror this summer, the attacker ISIL claimed to be one of its fighters was 17. The list is getting longer. The portrait of Europe's new menace, the underage terrorist, is taking shape.
Tonight, a dispute over peace, politics, and the role of the U.S. presidency may be coming to a head at the United Nations. Just hours before the Security Council was set to vote for a resolution calling for Israel to stop building settlements, the ballot was abruptly cut off, averting a potential clash between the current and future U.S. presidents over U.S. relations with Israel. The resolution demands Israel, quote, immediately and completely cease all settlement activities, calling it a flagrant violation under international law. CNN has learned that President Obama was prepared to let the resolution pass, either by abstaining or voting in favor of it. The U.S. has traditionally seen Jewish settlements in areas controlled by Palestinians as an obstacle to a peace process, but has never gone so far in a UN vote. The move today would have been seen by many as a provocation, a parting shot at Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with whom President Obama has strained ties. Around 3 a.m., Netanyahu took to Twitter, writing in English and appealing for a U.S. veto. But before the White House could announce its support for the resolution, this morning President-elect Donald Trump sent out this statement calling for a veto and saying peace between Israel and Palestinians needs to be negotiated, not, quote, through the imposition of terms by the United Nations. A senior Israeli official tells CNN the Israeli government reached out to Trump to weigh in after failing to persuade Washington to cancel the vote. Today, gratitude from Israeli Ambassador Ron Dermer, who tweeted Israel, quote, deeply appreciates the clear and unequivocal call by Trump.
The United Nations is not a friend of democracy.
Trump's statement appeared to again signal his desire to shift U.S.-Israel relations. During the election, he said he would move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, and he denounced UN involvement in the peace process in an interview with Wolf Blitzer.
This has to be a deal between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Trump says he wants to be seen as an honest broker in the Mideast.
I would love to be neutral if it's possible. It's probably not possible because there's so much hatred. There's so much going on.
A 10-year-old autistic girl from Northern Ireland is stunning the world with her incredible singing voice. Take a listen.
I've heard about this baby boy who's come to earth to bring us joy, and I just want to sing this song to you. It goes like this: the 5th, the 5th, the minor fall, and the major death. With every breath I'm singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
Just beautiful. That is Kaylee Rogers singing Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah with her school choir. The song has special meaning for her. Kaylee has both autism and ADHD, and she used to be afraid to speak up in class, but singing has helped her to build up her confidence. Alexis Barnes, the little girl battling an autoimmune disorder who touched our hearts 2 weeks ago with her birthday party, is now showing us all how to give back this holiday season. Alexis donated all of her birthday gifts to a local children's center in Galveston, Texas.
She's been inundated with love from all corners of the country, and Alexis Barnes is showing just how eager she is to spread that love to others.
She's 6 and she gets it. She understands. These are gifts that she knows she got, and she's happy to give them away.
She brought more than 400 presents for kids who maybe wouldn't have gotten any this Christmas.
You put the marbles on the blue thing, and then the hippos gotta eat it.
Alexis giving the hungry hippos and everything else away to the boys and girls at the Children's Center of Galveston.
I was like, wow, that's a lot of toys for her. And that's really sweet for her to let us have some.
How does it feel to be here and meet all these kids? They all seem so happy.
Good.
I've heard them say this is the best Christmas that we've had, and they're just overjoyed
at the love and people that are still thinking about them when they're feeling like they're at their lowest.
Which for Alexis was just a few weeks ago when no one showed up to her 6th birthday. Her journey with an autoimmune disorder that causes hair loss has already left her feeling different than her classmates at times. The kids here say they can relate.
At first, when I thought that no one came to her birthday party, I felt really sad. But since when we found out we were having all this for her, I was like excited.
Not just excited for the toys, but the message that Alexis is spreading, proving there's enough love to go around for everybody. Drew Caritas, KHOU 11 News.
Almost all of the kids from the Children's Center say this is the best Christmas they have ever had. Alexis even stayed after to play together with her new friends.